In 1991, the Criterion Collection released the first 3 James Bond movies, Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger, on LaserDisc. LaserDisc, formerly known as DiscoVision, was consumers' first access to an optical disc storage medium, but ultimately failed to compete with the cheaper VHS and Betamax videotape rivals, despite its superior video and audio quality. Criterion pioneered the concept of a movie commentary for its LaserDisc format, releasing the first in 1984 on the infamous monster film King Kong, featuring an audio commentary by film historian Ron Haver. Fast forward 7 years, the first 3 James Bonds released on LaserDisc would contain a selection of key figures involved with their productions, including Dr. No and From Russia with Love director Terrence Young, Goldfinger director Guy Hamilton, editor Peter Hunt, production set designer Ken Adam, and screenwriter Richard Maibaum. The commentaries were hosted by film historian Stephen J. Rubin, who wrote 1981's The James Bond Films, a book where everything or nothing and Bond producer Albert R. Cubby Broccoli didn't cooperate, and thus no stills from the movies could ultimately be used. Shortly after these LaserDiscs were released to the public for sale, Albert R. Broccoli was enraged, calling the commentaries unacceptable. He mandated that all unsold copies be immediately recalled, and going further, he banned all future sale of these LaserDiscs permanently. That leaves us all wondering, what was in these commentaries that incensed Albert R. Broccoli to such an extreme degree?
Curious.
Guess what?
What?
We have the tapes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
That's right. The remainder of this video is a compilation of the most salacious comments found in these commentaries. Some of the stuff said here is shocking.
Shocking.
We have crass comments about the cast members. We have unprofessional comments about behind-the-scenes business dealings. We have people criticizing aspects of the film. We have people criticizing Ian Fleming himself. That's right, it's true. Trigger warning. In modern times, some of these more sensitive souls would call some of these comments racist.
What do you mean, you people?
Homophobic.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
And sexist.
What is a woman?
Positively shocking.
Positively shocking.
We're going in order, starting with Dr. No, followed by From Russia with Love, and ending with Goldfinger. Buckle up, let's do this!
Nearly all these actors were just amateurs. She was meant to be nude, but in those days we weren't allowed such luxuries as you would have had today. Today she'd have been stark naked.
Dr. No had that wonderful girl in it, Ursula Andress. Sean's treatment of her, far from being the roughneck that he later proved to be with a lot of the other female stars, he was very tender and gentle toward her. There weren't many instances of that toward the various young ladies that he played opposite in the films to come.
I think that's Chris Blackwell, that blondish boy there. I had as an assistant there a young Jamaican, a white Jamaican, but he's been there for 4 generations, called Chris Blackwell, who came to me after the shooting of this picture and asked me if I'd lend him or whether I'd invest £5,000 in a record company he wanted to start for all the Jamaicans in England. He was going to just get music that they would like and take it round in the back of his car and sell it. So I said, yes, I'd do it. And he brought his partner. I said, but I'd like to meet the partner if I'm going to be a director of your company. I'd like to see who I'm in bed with. And the next day, this chap showed up with Chris. Chris came with him. And they were both absolutely high as kites on pot and something else, I don't know what. And my wife said, look, don't touch it. You're going to, these boys are not safe. All I can tell you is that Island Records was sold about 6 months ago for $400 million, so it wasn't a very good decision on my part, but he's a lovely man, very nice person. This guy was the owner of the nightclub, and I think he was I hope he's not alive still, but I thought he was quite an operator in some form or other.
Sean was
Well, Sean was pretty average. He didn't like to do anything that was too dangerous, or that he thought might be dangerous, you know.
I had the feeling that Mr. Fleming was a bit of a snob. He just didn't seem very interested in the writing aspects of the things, which was odd, but he got bored with them, I think. He got bored with the books after a while, and the books showed it, too. The best of them all was, of course, not Dr. No. He didn't seem very interested in them, in anything. And the only thing he ever asked me about From Russia with Love was when he met me during the time we were shooting that, he said to me one question. He said, "Are the rats in?" That was the only question he ever asked me, "Are the rats in?" And then, of course, he did say, "Your screenplays are so much funnier than my books." I don't know why. I should have told him, because we were trying to make them funnier.
The governor of Nassau, of the Bahamas, came to watch a shooting. We broke for lunch just after that. God, was I relieved. Oh, God, was I relieved. And the governor arrived with his wife and everything. It was a frightfully hot day. And Sean had taken off his trousers to keep cool. He was perfectly dressed up to there. But Sean came alongside, and we said, "Can we present you to Lady Brennan?" And he said yes, and he jumped out of the car. He didn't even have a jockstrap on. She said, "My dear," said like that, and turned away. And he said, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." So they got him a towel and put his trousers on, and the thing went on.
Sort of oriental look. And she's a good actress. I suppose today you'd have had a love scene in there. You'd have had two bodies naked, rolling around with one another.
There was a gag in this that we did. We didn't have it in about 4 or 5 takes. It was just in the last take, and we nearly didn't use it, but it was very effective. It's when he's screwing her, or about to. He looks at his watch, and he got a howl of laughter, so we left it in. We were doubtful about it, it was one of those things. I was in a nightclub in Paris, and in the crowd was Darryl Zanuck dancing with Greco. Do you remember Juliet Greco, who was his mistress at the time? Darryl said, how are you doing, kid? And I said, fine, because I'd known him. I'd made a picture for Fox before that. In fact, I was under contract at the studio for a time. And Darryl said, what are you doing tomorrow for lunch? And I said, nothing. He said, come and have lunch with me, 1 o'clock. Pronto, 1 o'clock I arrive. So he said, come on in. I'll go and have a shower and shave and clean up. Go on into the sitting room. He said, there are about 50 lousy scripts. He said, there are about 200 telegrams and telexes, and there are a lot of letters and a lot of photographs. Take what you want. So I looked at 1 or 2 of the letters, the telexes. They were rather boring. I started to turn over the pictures. I would say there must have been 200 pictures all around his desk, piles of them like that. And there must have been certainly 50 girls who had a wet shirt on. And there was Ursula. So I took it, and I went round to the bathroom, and I shouted to Darryl. I said, who is the girl in the wet shirt? And he said, Ursula Andress. So I said, that girl's going to be a star. If he remembers just one name, one face. I said, can I keep the picture? He said, yeah, sure, take it. Take them. He said, we're not going to use any of those people. And at this party, naturally enough, Ian Fleming was there. And he came across with Cubby Broccoli, who introduced us, and we were talking for a few minutes, and he said, yes, he said, you're the director. You're the man who's going to spoil my books, he said, with your directorial touches. I said, Mr. Fleming, I don't know about you, but I said, my last film won the gold medal at the Venice Film Festival. I don't know what prizes your books have ever read. He said, my God, you're a prickly customer, aren't you? And I said, no. I think he was a little bit drunk at the moment, too. But when Dr. No came out, or while we were shooting it, we were in Jamaica. And one of the days, funny enough, it was the day we were shooting Ursula Andress coming out of the water. We then had a scene where she ran across the beach. And who should we see in the distance coming, chatting gaily away? 3 very English-looking gents. and Ian Fleming. And at the lunch, we all got very high together. It was a very good lunch sitting out in the open. Here we get the wet shirt syndrome. You'll notice what a damn good physique Sean had, and which none of the others have had, I'm afraid.
The whole idea of her walking out of the sea at that moment and being dressed like that was very appealing. I find it rather old-fashioned now to look at it. I mean, Bo Derek would have come out with nothing on.
This was a kind of I can't remember what it was. It was a buggy, a dune buggy with a rather corny thing in front of it. It was not really much good. We didn't have any money to do anything better than this. We were lucky enough to have the flamethrower.
She's wearing a little bit of Chinese, which comes from one of the staff, I suppose. But anyway, it all worked, and it was nice and elegant. Yeah, well, no bra, too, you see. The emphasis of no bra, I guess, in those days was really quite crazy in those days, that's right. As I say, unfortunately, it's 30 years ago, and we've gone so far forward now.
And Harry Saltzman said, as he goes up the steps, he must say, "Oh, that's where it is." Ah. And I said, "No, Harry, he doesn't." I said, "Now, go away." And he said, no, I'm sure I'm right. I said, "You go away, Harry. If you don't like it, you can." I said to Cubby, "Get him off the set. He's the pain in the ass." So I nearly killed myself showing Sean how to do this. We had to get a stuntman to do it eventually. It was a very stupid thing. There were all these rims around there. I showed him it was perfectly safe, and the stuntman proved with a sack of exactly my weight that you could kill yourself. I stole this from some other picture, I can't remember what. The despairing hand sliding down, disappearing. I can't remember what picture. It was a German film. This was entirely stolen. I'd just seen a very pretentious picture called L'année dernière, Marienbad, where everybody was wandering down moonlight paths with sculptures and Christ knows what. That's her waggling her fanny. I wish Kasparov and Karpov played as quickly as these two geezers do. She's about 70 then, and she was screwing like mad when she was about 80. She's a great lady. I used to have lunch with her every time I came through New York. It was very interesting. You see, Mr. Shaw looked quite a splendid figure of a man by then. I made Robert blonde his hair. He very nearly turned the part down because of that. Well, he said, "You'll have to get another actor." So I said, "Well, we'll get another actor." And then about 2 days later, his agent called and said, "He's dyed his hair. Can he come and have lunch with you, sir?" And he looked wonderful. And I sent him to a gym because he didn't have a very good physique. But my God, he did after this.
He seems fit enough.
They bloody nearly killed him in that gym. He was doing about 5 or 6 hours a day.
She's a very pretty girl. Unfortunately, she can't walk very well, and if you notice, I've chopped most of her walks. She has, of course, the legs under the table that we're going to see are not hers. She has an unfortunate, rather splayed foot walk, which I didn't think look very attractive.
She was obviously moved by Daniela Bianchi when she was walking around in back of her and put her hand on her shoulder, and you knew that there was something there, and that the girl had evoked in her some lesbianism, perhaps, or something like that.
Sean was just starting to put on weight after this. 2 weeks in Istanbul, he had to hold his gut in when he was getting out of a shower or something. We always had a girl and doing the desk clerk, whatever it is. If a girl could do it, a girl did it, and especially a pretty girl. Well, here's this gorgeous, what's her name? She's saying, "Aren't you going to come and screw me?" And he says, "Wait a minute, I've got work to do." Da, 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 da. She was married to an immensely wealthy chap. We only discovered this afterwards. So both shots show her best developments. The girl comes in. We had to get the girl with the best legs. We went to a model agency to get a pair of great legs for this.
In fact, this is not Tanya's legs and body at all. This is somebody with nicer legs, actually, and better physique. Because they thought it was far too sexy and amoral, the whole fight. And at one point, I remember the British censor telling me that he could see the girl's pubic hairs. And I said to him, if you can, I've been watching it frame by frame on the Moviola, and I can't. If you like, I'll show it to you on the Moviola frame by frame. And if you can see anything like that anywhere, I'll cut them out right in front of you.
I wish I could do that. Those kind of muscles, I think, take years of development. That was in the book, but in the book, and Ian was very disappointed because in the book I believe they're stark naked or very nearly naked, and one of them bites the other's breast, bites a nipple or something. I said, Ian, what kind of a picture? You know, how the hell did you expect I was going to get away with that? You know. They hated each other also, which was a great help. Their dresses came off without us trying anything. Really. One of the tops and one of the, but anyway, I had to tell him to keep his stomach in because he was getting very overweight at this time. He had a definite paunch. Overeating. Sean loves to eat. In those days, they didn't even like the idea of people screwing on the screen, you know. They couldn't care less. They just tore everything down, just built it again, you know. They threw money around like drunken Indians. You know. So now Pedro Armendáriz meets me for the first time at the Connaught Hotel where he's staying, and it's one of those things, he can't take his eyes off my hair. And finally I said, look, Mr. Armendáriz, you must get one thing straight. I'm not a fag and I don't normally go around like this.
The only thing Mr. Fleming ever asked me about From Russia with Love was when he met me during the time we were shooting that, he said to me one question. He said, are the rats in? You know the scene where this rat stampede in the cellar of the thing? That was the only question he ever asked me, are the rats in? And then of course he did say your screenplays are so much funnier than my books. I don't know why. I should have told him because we had tried to make them funnier. And I had the feeling that Mr. Fleming was a bit of a snob. That's all that I felt about it.
James.
He was a great ladies' man and liked the ladies very much, but and he was not above using them in his work. As a matter of fact, I've written someplace where I say that in the last analysis, his greatest weapon was himself. That he could extract secrets from them, win them over to his side, make them change allegiance and all that kind of stuff, just because he was a great lay. That was part of the James Bond mystique, that he could manipulate women that way. Later, that became a very, very, the women's lib people began to hate all that stuff, and we eventually had to do it less and less. There's the new man, the new Englishman, and also because we know that England's position in the world has, I won't say deteriorated, but changed in the last 50 years and so. And this was a substitute, a kind of memory of the great past of England's glory.
But Sean Connery was the tougher, more serious agent, and a tremendous success with audiences of the 1960s. The odds were against him, though, and he was referred to at that time by American film executives as, quote, the truck driver, unquote.
And I'm afraid we lost the rotary arm, went through the foot of our cameraman. and for a long while, he eventually lost his foot, I'm afraid. They had to amputate it after a lot of trying to keep it. Helicopter shooting is very dangerous and very difficult at times.
This was my idea. It was a steal, of course, from Hitchcock, North by Northwest. He damn nearly hit Sean a couple of times. That's Sean's frog look. I used to have to say to him, Sean, frog. He used to do this with his mouth. He wouldn't do it twice. 3 frames or something. It's rather bad back projection. There's no red in it.
It was a very unfocused beginning, this whole movie, and the whole idea of card playing and him listening to his person in the room. I suspect that Guy Hamilton didn't even believe it and was not at all sure that it would work. I don't know what he really thought, but I don't think he thought it could work. I mean, the sequence didn't work when we got it back. Unfortunately, for my eye, you can see that the entire sequence is made up of inserts.
Sean Connery, by contrast, wasn't really anxious to do Goldfinger. His acting range had grown enormously since the first 2 Bond movies, and after From Russia with Love, he'd done Woman of Straw, a thriller with Rafe Richardson and Gina Lollobrigida, and Alfred Hitchcock's Marnie. He suspected that Goldfinger would be even more successful than the first 2, and was concerned about being permanently typed in the role of 007. He wanted new terms from Saltzman and Broccoli. Connery had said publicly in February of 1964, a month before shooting began, that he was reluctant to do the new movie, throwing Saltzman and Broccoli into a panic. He did report, however, under the multi-picture contract he had signed for Dr. No, but it was during the shooting of this scene that his dispute with the producers seems to have come to a head, according to a story told by Tom Carlyle, the film's publicist, to Connery biographer Kenneth Passingham. According to Passingham, when the scene of the karate blow was shot, Connery complained of an injury and headache and went home for the day. When he returned, he had a new contract giving him an increase in pay and a percentage of the picture. In an interview shortly after Goldfinger opened, Frobe freely admitted to becoming a Nazi Party member in 1929. During the war, he did serve as a non-commissioned officer in the German army occupying Vienna.
Faster, Gert, quicker. When Cubby and Harry saw the dailies, they went ape. Goldfinger was speaking total gibberish.
In fact, one famous actress didn't even know that she was revoiced, and she came to the premiere.
Sean thought that was ridiculous. Nobody could squash a golf ball. But that's the whole point, Sean. It's obvious by now that before the picture's over, you and Oddjob are going to tangle, so you're going to be fighting a man who can squash golf balls, amongst other things. I still say it's rubbish. It'll end up on the cutting room floor.
Tanya Mallet was the name of that girl. Tilly Masterson. Tanya Mallet. I don't know what happened to her. She wasn't a great actress, I'm afraid. She needed a lot of encouragement. But she was a pretty girl, very pretty girl, nice girl. I don't know what happened to her. Probably got married and had a big family. Aston Martins were always the bane of Broccoli's life. Cubby Broccoli always swore, of course they had to buy them, they had to pay for them. They were not given them by any means. That's back projection. I doubt that a lot of these sequences would work today if you did it in a film. I think the public would expect more out of a film of today's caliber.
I don't think Fleming ever totally approved the treatment of his books. He thought they were much more serious, but he certainly approved of the success and rewards those films were to bring him. Hitchcock invited me to lunch. He'd seen the movie. I don't think he particularly cared for it, but as we parted, he said, "The little old lady at the gate, bowing and scraping, 2 minutes later swinging that machine gun, like that, made my day." I had a feeling he wished he'd thought of it and used it. Now here's something that I screwed up. It doesn't work for me, it's not clear. If it becomes clear, it's too late. Bond is heading down the alley, a car is coming at him head on. It doesn't come to a stop despite machine gun fire. He's about to crash into it. He swerves into the wall to avoid it. There is no car. It's his own headlights, reflected in one of those corner mirrors. It's not at all clear. Hate the whole thing.
The idea of it is so good and so terrifying. Every man, I think, could be put in the position of having his balls cut off like this with a laser beam.
And here is the delectable Miss Pussy Galore. I seem to remember there was a nervousness on the part of the producers at the fortunate choice of name. I took the view that Fleming had named her thus, 1 million readers had read it in print, so the censor was really trying to close the stable door long after the horse, etc. But I think it was Tom Carlyle, our 7-foot-tall publicity man, who settled the issue by getting published a picture of Prince Philip and Honor Blackman with the charming caption, Pussy and the Prince.
The censorship story was great here. They sent me across to America. At that time we had the Catholic censorship, and they knew we were going to have a problem with the name Pussy Galore. Although it was in the book, I don't know why we should have done, but they were very concerned about whether they would get that by. And the moment I arrived in New York and gave an interview, I immediately mentioned her name and said, well, there's a great character called Pussy Galore. And that was out, and that was it. And from that time onwards, people talked about it. So when they came to see it on the censor, they'd already heard about the name Pussy Galore. And it had been spoken about by so many people for so much because of the name that I think they were defeated. They were preconditioned to it.
Most amazingly, while magazines like Life had no problem mentioning Pussy Galore by name, Sports Illustrated of all journals simply called her Galore. She is one of the few actresses to appear as a bondwoman who has seriously benefited from the experience. The irony was that Blackman 4 years earlier had almost given up acting. The lesbianism is toned down almost to the point of non-existence in the screenplay, except for little lines such as her telling Bond to forget his charm because she's immune. Actually, Blackman wanted to tease the audience with other references, but unlike Terence Young on the 2 earlier pictures, Guy Hamilton didn't permit much deviation from Goldfinger's script, and he denied her the opportunity to have quite that much fun with the role. Blackman is the most unusual of all the Bond women on a number of counts. For one thing, she's the only actress ever to play a James Bond love interest, if you will, who was older than the man playing Bond. Sean Connery was 33 years old when he did Goldfinger, while Blackman was 38, hardly the pliant and sweet young talents that have passed through the series before or since. For another thing, she's an actress, first and always. The fact that she is extremely attractive didn't hurt her career, but Blackman never entered beauty contests, sent agents or producers pictures of herself in wet t-shirts, or any of the other things that most of the Bond women have done, at least on occasion, on their way to fame.
I think this is one of the trickiest scenes in the movie. How to go from dyke to sexpot to heroine in the best of 2 falls, 1 submission, 1 roll in the hay. I suppose it comes off. To fly the Piper Cubs, we'd assembled a gang of tough hombres, mostly dust-cropter pilots. They were all given black shirts and awful blonde nylon wigs from the local Woolworths. You'll notice I could never go in close on those planes. Once airborne, they insisted on removing the wigs, too sissy. Those who kept them on could be seen with cigars clamped in their mouths.
The greatest thing of all was having cast Sean Connery as James Bond, who really was a very sexy man. There are very few characters, very few film stars, actors, whatever, who have that sort of quality. I guess Clark Gable had it, and there must be 1 or 2 others who had it. But I mean, they virtually can walk into a room and fuck anybody. And that's the great ability of his sexy charm, I suppose, that he has with women particularly.
Woo! That was quite the ride. And that's the last of the wildest comments in these 3 commentaries. This kind of stuff would never make its way to the market nowadays. What did you think the craziest bit was? Let us know down in the comments. I thought this one was pretty funny.
She was about 70 then, and she was screwing like mad when she was about 80.
Also, be sure to like and subscribe. It may seem like a small thing, but it really helps this channel out. Well, that's about all for now. Have a stellar day.